Okay, so hot take, right? I believe that Taylor Swift is the biggest pop star of our generation. I also believe that her music is way less interesting than her career. And before you go and start like typing and like going crazy with your thumbs or whatever, like just let me explain because this is not, or I don't consider this a like Taylor Swift hate video. And I definitely don't consider like a Taylor Swift is talentless video. I think that would be a little ridiculous. Taylor Swift is not an accident, right? She's not just some woman who like, picked up a guitar one day and just kind of fell into $1 billion. Like this girl understands what it takes to become the greatest pop star of our generation. Her and her team really understand certain things like story, branding, timing, and like just the idea of like how to make your fans feel like they are not just listening to songs or like an album, but they are really participating in a world. That might be her greatest skill, but that's also kind of my issue. Because when I look at Taylor Swift, T Swift, I see one of the most effective pop stars that we've ever had. But when I listen to a lot of her music, I don't feel like I'm listening to one of the most compelling artists of her generation. If you come to music for the lyrics first, right? Like personal storytelling or like emotional diary entry style of songwriting, then I totally get why Taylor Swift works for you, right? It almost feels like she's an artist who narrates your life back to you. But if you put other things first, like vocals or, performance, groove, taking musical risks, or just like the general feeling where a song grabs you on its own without even knowing the backstory first, then like Taylor Swift can feel really thin for an artist that is this successful. And that gap, that is what I want to talk about today. Hello, if you are new here, my name is Cedric. I talk about pop music and pop culture, and today we are talking about Taylor Swift and why I've always just kind of struggled when it comes to vibing with her as an artist. Now, again, not a hate video, not saying the girl is untalented, right? And I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I have not liked a few Taylor Swift songs, a few Taylor Swift's eras, but I've just never fully connected with Taylor Swift and her artistry in the way that so many people do. And I think the reason is just that it comes down to this, okay? Taylor Swift is a great pop star because she understands people. But for the way that I listen to music, she's just not always the most compelling music artist, at least in the ways that matter the most to me. And if you like tough conversations about pop singers that you enjoy, then, you should subscribe. So the first time that I really remember hearing Taylor Swift was in high school, right? I'm thinking of songs like You Belong With Me or, Teardrops on My Guitar. And I remember there always being like a very specific type of girl who listened to Taylor Swift, which is not shade. It's just the truth. Like it was, the girl, right? Like it was like, she enjoys shopping at stores like Aeropostale or like Abercrombie and Fitch. She enjoyed riding horses. She oftentimes had like, very clean, very round handwriting. And she always smelled like warm vanilla sugar from like Bath and Body Works. Taylor existed in that world. And that wasn't a bad world. It just was not my world. I grew up on not just pop music, but also a lot of R&B, a lot of hip hop, and even kind of a lot of pop rock. Like the artists that I remember vividly listening to were artists like Avril Lavigne, Stevie Nicks, Paramore, Beyonce, Brandy, Mariah. Like I was drawn to the voice. The vocals were almost the most important thing to me when it comes to artists that I love and enjoy. And Taylor Swift's early, girl next door, diary with a guitar type of vibe, it just never really spoke to me or never really felt like it was for me, which is fine. That's totally okay. Not every artist has to speak to everyone, But here is what I find very interesting about the whole thing. For the people that it did speak to, it spoke to them directly. Kind of eerily directly. And I truly believe that is part of her genius. Her songs feel like they were written for a very specific emotional archetype. The girl who feels overlooked, right? The girl who was wronged and has receipts, remembers everything. The girl who believes her relationship wasn't just a relationship. It really, really spoke to so many relatable topics that seemed like they were directly or directed at young girls. And if that's your emotional language, Taylor Swift feels probably like a prophet. But if that's not your thing, then sometimes it kind of feels like you're watching someone else's movie. You get it, you understand why people are crying. You see the scene, you see the lighting, you see, the visuals and what's going on. It's just you understand the moment, you're just not in it. That has always been my experience with Taylor. Like, I understand the phenomenon. I just don't always feel the music in my body. But like I said, like, I don't want to act like nothing in Taylor Swift's discography has ever worked for me, because like that could not be further from the truth. There was a very specific period of my life where I was eating up I Knew You Were Trouble and 22. Man, it was in secret, but she had me full. Like, I would never admit it out loud at the time because, like, I had a brand to protect. But I Knew You Were Trouble was one of the first songs that truly worked for me. Like, that melody, that melody was strong. The post-chorus, that song, like, it had such a dramatic punch to it. And it felt like it was so, I want to say surface level, but that's like not, that sounds more negative than what my intention is. Like, it was very simple and easy to understand. Like, it didn't need some like 40-minute lore breakdown. Like, it was a very, very simple concept to get. Like, right, like on the first listen. Like, you knew this person was trouble from the beginning. Like, you knew it, and you still participated in it. You still walked into it. Like, which is like, it's human. We all do it. It happens. And 22 worked because I'm pretty sure around the time the song came out, I was 22. Duh. And when you're 22, like, you truly feel invincible. Like, you feel like your whole life is ahead of you. You feel so just like young and like you're just at the prime of your life. Even though like I'm older now and I feel like I'm currently at the prime of my life, but like, I don't know. 22 was just like a different level of like nothing can touch me. The song just captured something real. Like, it didn't need to be deep, like it just needed to feel like that age. And it did. Then, I don't know if it was right after, but I know that at some point after, maybe an album or two after, 1989 happened. And I will give Taylor Swift her flowers. That album was a moment. That album was honestly the closest I think that Taylor has ever come to making a full album that I was like, basically a non-skip for me. I want to say there was maybe 2 or 3 songs that I was just like not really feeling, but I genuinely could play that album from almost start to finish with like no skips. She made a pure pop album that you almost like you had to work hard to ignore. The songs were catchy. The era was like clean. The visuals worked. The album had so much momentum. Like, it truly felt like everyone was talking about it. Shake It Off was everywhere. And I don't mean everywhere in like the casual way of like it plays on the radio here and there. Like, no. I have probably sung the background vocals because I'm not a female, So I've sung background vocals to that song at least 80 to 100 weddings. Like, no exaggeration. That song, there was a couple of years where like literally every single wedding that I sang at, that song was on the set list. And to this day, it's still constantly played. And the crowd, when the part, hey, just think, while you've been getting down and out with the liars on the dirty sheets of the world, you could have been getting down to this sick beat. That part, like, the whole crowd always goes crazy. Like, it's such a moment. And like it's not Shakespeare, right? But like it works, and it's incredibly effective. Sometimes pop does not need to be deep. It just needs to know what its job is. And I feel like Taylor Swift has like kind of mastered what the job of pop music is supposed to do. Shake It Off had that thing, and I'll move on in a second, but Shake It Off kind of had that thing that I feel like Call Me Maybe by Carly Rae Jepsen had. And I will never shade Carly Rae Jepsen, okay? That woman is pop like perfection. Like, she is so good. But I feel like Shake It Off had that same energy where it's like, it's so simple, it's so bright, and like, it's so, obviously designed to make you dance that like resisting it kind of feels embarrassing. Like, you cannot play Call Me Maybe and just stand there. That's just like, you just look like a loser. Like, just participate, That is Taylor at her best for me, right? For Cedric. That is what I view as the best version of Taylor, when it's like she stops trying to convince me that she is the deepest writer in the room and she just focuses on making a really effective pop song. And then you have like, albums like Folklore and Evermore. I mentioned at the beginning that there was like really one era that I fully respected, and I would say this is the one, even though I would argue that 1989 is the one that I had the most fun with. Because to be fair, like, I don't really go back and listen to Folklore or Evermore like ever. Like, I do respect respect those albums, but I think I respect them more than I enjoy them sonically. But I get why Swifties see Folklore as like one of her strongest artistic moments. Because like for me, from the outside looking in, it felt like one of the only times where Taylor's machine kind of felt quieter than it typically does. The production had like actual atmosphere. Like the storytelling wasn't always tied to some type of like public celebrity narrative or like, some simple, pop song narrative. Songs like Cardigan, Willow, and one of my personal favorites, even though I don't believe a lot of Swiftie fans like this song, but Nobody No Crime, love that song. I'm a big Haim fan, so like I just love them in general, so like that helps. But I really do love that song. I don't know, that whole like, fall playlist, leaves falling, that, sweater weather. I can't say it. It's just that whole like, fall playlist, leaves are falling, it's sweater weather, you get your, pumpkin spice latte. Like that is what those two albums give me. Like I get it, I understand it, like I respect it, But like I said, like I respect it more than I love it, which kind of summarizes my entire relationship with Taylor Swift and her discography. The thing that Taylor Swift does extremely well is that she makes her fans feel personally understood. And people who dismiss Swifties as just like, another brainwashed cult of, pop culture fandom or whatever, I think completely miss why this approach works so well for her. Taylor writes in a way that at times makes people feel like they could have written the songs themselves. And just so there's no confusion, like I actually mean that as a compliment. Her lyrics hit because they're accessible. To me, they're not always the most complex, but they are very emotionally clear. Like I would describe a lot of Taylor Swift lyrics that I've heard as just kind of like the text that you wanted to write, but you just didn't know how to. Or maybe you did text it and that's why you're blocked. She knows her audience. She knows their pain points. She knows how to write something specific enough to feel personal, but broad enough that millions of people can find themselves in it somewhere. And that's why I think a lot of people call her like a phenomenal songwriter, right? And I do think that Taylor Swift is a good songwriter. I just don't think that she is like the greatest songwriter in the industry. Is that a hot take? Like calling her like the greatest songwriter that we have is just, that's where I kind of start to disconnect from this whole Taylor Swift narrative. Because when people talk about Taylor Swift like she's on some like untouchable songwriting level, I just always feel like really? Like, are you sure? One of the strongest lines that I have heard Taylor Swift write, assuming that she wrote the whole thing herself, is in Cardigan, actually. I feel like her writing is usually at its strongest when it's simple, clean, and emotionally direct, right? Like in the song Cardigan, it's something like leaving like a father, running like water, or whatever. Like that is genuinely a great line. And I would argue that that song, as well as like Willow, have a lot of really great lines. But then there are other lines where I'm just like that Charlie Puth line, I'm like, everyone has their moments, right? This girl has written plenty of songs, so like I'm not saying that every single line has to be perfect, but then there are just times where I'm just like, okay. And I'm sure that, Swifties have an explanation as to why that line is like, so much deeper than what I think it is, but I just like, girl, bye. I just think that overall, like sometimes Taylor Swift's writing feels powerful because it's actually good writing. And then other times it feels like it's powerful because her fan base has built like a museum around it. But I do believe that Taylor Swift fans are not just so intense because of her songs. Like they're intense because they're fans of the universe. And Taylor Swift is very good at positioning herself in a way that makes her fans feel like that universe needs defending. So it stops being like, I love this artist, and it becomes like, this artist has been misunderstood, mocked, attacked, betrayed, and I feel like I need to protect her. And to be fair, like there are moments where this girl was wronged. Like, you have the Kanye VMAs moment that we all know about. You also have like the Masters situation, which was real. Like, I don't mean to take all that away from her. But Taylor also knows how to stay in a position that makes her fans feel like she needs to be defended, even though she is literally one of the most powerful people in the entire music industry. And I think about this from time to time when I'm talking about or thinking about Taylor, because like from the beginning of her career, her image has always been this like an image that's very easy for mainstream America to protect. she's just the blonde girl, she's just the girl next door, the girl with the acoustic guitar, she's going through a heartbreak, she's innocent, she's just like us. And I think that all of those things in conjunction have made the general public just kind of always feel very willing to see Taylor as someone who always needs defending. But when you combine that image with songs about being misunderstood, wrong, underestimated, like you don't just build listeners, you build protectors. Now, this is where I probably will get into a bit more criticism, right? Because this video is about my problems with Taylor Swift. One of the things that frustrates me when it comes to a lot of Taylor Swift fans is they will often defend things that I just think are clearly worth questioning. The album variants are one thing. The different editions, different bonus tracks, like that, like sure, we could argue that Taylor Swift for a long time has been in the business of knocking other women off the charts. So whether she's doing that on purpose remains to be, proven. But I think that lots of coincidences. I get the business of it, and I do get the it's cool to collect collector's editions of things. But at what point is it girl, you're just milking these people for all that they have. And when people bring this up, oftentimes the response is oh, well, everyone does it. And I don't think that's a good enough answer. Even if everyone does some variation of it or some version of it, Taylor Swift does it at a scale that is just I do believe deserves its own side individual conversation. And she does little things that I again, I'm not super into this fandom, so I don't know everything. But when I hear about stuff like her releasing, voice memos that you have to pay for that are the early versions of these songs where they're just her ideas and stuff or whatever. And you listen to them and it's these, Mama, these sound terrible. These sound really bad. And fans are paying for them because they love her. This is part of the lore. This is part of the, these are the Easter eggs of, the era. And if I don't get this, then I'm going to lose out and I'll never be able to access it again. There's such a scarcity about Taylor Swift's capitalism. And it's oftentimes I'm seeing all of the money being made and all of the fans that are, kind of being taken advantage of in certain ways. But then the product itself is yeah, I don't see that as just an artistic decision. I see that as her and her team knowing exactly how much her fans are going to spend just to feel close to her. And when you are as powerful as Taylor Swift is, your choices, they carry weight. So the argument of well, everyone does it just doesn't apply the same way when you are the industry. Taylor Swift's music for me has just always felt like a vehicle. It's a vehicle for the story, the era, or the next big moment or the fandom. When I listen to a lot of her music on its own, no context, no backstory about how the song was made and what relationship she was in or whatever was going on in her personal life, I just feel like something is missing. For me, the music has to live in the sound. It's not just about the story. Like I said, I truly care about things like vocals, production, and what a voice actually does inside of a track. I don't just care about whether the lyrics are communicating an emotion. I care about whether the voice is in and of itself telling a story. Using your voice to communicate lyrics and using your voice to tell a story are two totally different things, right? Think about scatting, right? Boop, 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 shove it up, let's use scatting as an example. When someone is scatting, no words, just syllables, no lyrics, you can still feel the emotion. You can follow the story they're telling through tone, their phrasing, the different choices they make with their voice, without any lyrics being required. The voice is the story, and that's what I mean. Taylor uses her voice to communicate her lyrics, and she does that very effectively. But I don't oftentimes feel like she uses her voice to tell a story beyond the words. She doesn't really have a lot of unique tone, texture, phrasing, or just she doesn't really take a lot of vocal risks that then make me go wow, your voice completely changed the emotional meaning of that line. And that matters to me because she's a pop singer. Your voice is a huge part of your artistry. And I'm not comparing Taylor Swift to Whitney Houston, right? I'm not saying that she needs to be Beyonce or Mariah Carey. I'm just I just need the voice on songs to feel like more than just the delivery system. And for me, like Taylor's voice oftentimes just kind of feels like the middleman. That's why when people call her like the greatest artist of all time, like I just kind of get stuck. Cause I'm like, as a pop star, absolutely. As a songwriter for her audience, sure. But it's just, I can't connect with her as a music artist in the ways that I personally value the most. And like with Taylor, like oftentimes she gets compared to like other pop stars in the industry. And I don't really compare Taylor Swift or feel like she's on the same level as other juggernauts like Beyonce or like Lady Gaga. Cause I feel like those artists are doing completely different things. The comparisons that I feel like make a little more sense to me are artists like Ed Sheeran or Pink, because those are artists where the conversation is also typically about the songwriting, the relatability, using the guitar or the piano, like real emotions and connecting with your audience in a different way. But I would argue that Ed Sheeran and Pink are both doing something in that space that Taylor Swift isn't. Like, let's take Ed Sheeran, okay? Whether you like his music or not, the guitar feels like it's actually part of the architecture of the song. Ed Sheeran's guitar is not just an accessory. It's not just there to say, I'm an authentic songwriter, right? For Ed Sheeran, the guitar is as much a part of what he is delivering as everything else. It's the rhythm. It's the way his guitar becomes like percussion and melody at the same time, the way it builds the song from the inside out. Like you can tell that Ed Sheeran has put real time in with his instrument. Whereas with Taylor, it's like she is known for playing the guitar and being the girl with the guitar, but the guitar is more of an image. It says, I write songs, I'm grounded, I'm the girl with the guitar. But when I watch her play, I don't usually feel like I'm watching someone with a deep relationship to that instrument. It just kind of feels functional. It just gets her where she needs to go. And like, not everyone has to be an incredible guitarist, right? Like if you can play the guitar well enough to get the songs out, like that's all you really need. But when the guitar is like central to your story as an artist, then it's hard for me not to pay attention to the musicianship side of things. Same with Pink, Pink has this grit to her that makes her songs feel lived in. Her voice has texture, her performances have like physicality. Girl is literally like flipping over the audiences. Not that you have to do that, but like I just wanted to mention it because like, oh my gosh, Jesus Christ. There's just a sense of like personhood in her songs that feel more fleshed out to me. So when I listen to Ed Sheeran or Pink, I truly feel like I'm listening to the music artist first. Whereas with Taylor Swift, I feel like I'm listening to her as a pop star first. And maybe that's exactly why she is bigger than both of them. Because what I believe Taylor Swift does best is not always musicianship. It's translation. She translates emotion into fandom. She translates her personal life and the lives of her fans into lore, which I truly believe is impressive. That's just not really what I go to music for. And something else that I do want to mention is that, like I said, I have not sat with every single Taylor album. I have not heard every single song. So I cannot say that she only talks about the same things, right? But the songs that I have heard oftentimes go back to the same themes. We are usually talking about heartbreak, betrayal, misunderstanding, revenge, being wrong or underestimated. I get that most artists typically talk about the same stuff, right? I don't mean to, I talk about pop artists. Like, come on now. Most pop artists go back to the same things pretty consistently. But with Taylor, it's like because the personal narrative is such a central part to the brand, the repetition I just feel like gets a bit louder than it does with other artists. And I think that's part of why some people feel like Taylor is just like overexposed. Because like sometimes as a non-fan, I would call myself, I don't really know if I'm tired of listening to Taylor Swift songs necessarily, more than I'm just kind of tired of like always being exposed to Taylor Swift's marketing department. When I tell you, I walk into Target, man, you would think, does Taylor own Target? Maybe she does, and I just don't know that because I don't go that often, but I still swear every time I walk into Target, she is everywhere. I always know damn well as soon as she releases an album because it is everywhere. It is in I won't say every aisle, but it's literally in a stand at the front of the store. It's in the back of the store. It's by the electronics. It's like on the side by like the shirts. There's like shirts being sold. Like I'm like, girl, like, oh my gosh, like we get it. We get it. And like for fans, I'm sure that's the fun part, right? Like if I were to walk into a store and see my favorite artists everywhere, like I would be like, oh my gosh, like I belong here. Like, so don't get me wrong. I get it. I'm just being you know. But I do think that like for everyone else, it can at times make the music feel smaller than the machine around it. Like it's hard to hear a song clearly when it feels like the brand is in the way, if that makes any sense. And that's why I think that, some Taylor fatigue is real. Not because she's like this, evil person or she's the only artist with fans that are like, kind of intense. I just think that Taylor and her brand have become so like omnipresent is the right word to use. I just think she's so visible that even neutral people kind of start to get a little exhausted. When you become the biggest pop star in the world, you also become like the weather. And sometimes people just kind of want a different forecast. Like, does it have to rain all the time? Like, do we have to always be in fall? No. I'm so stupid. Whatever. Let's move on. What I can be fair on is that I could be judging Taylor by a version of artistry that is just not as dominant anymore, Because like pop music, pop artistry is not just about singing, dancing, like, taking risks sonically. It is also about world building, building fan relationships and having really effective business strategy. And if that is the sole definition, then yeah, Taylor Swift is the greatest artist alive. Like, name another artist who has a tour like the Eras tour, right? Like, I didn't go, but I recognize that is like not just a concert. Like, that's a cultural event. Her re-recording every single album, that is like, what other artist is doing that? Like, that's part of the lore. And Taylor Swift has a machine and a fan base that most artists would probably sell both of their kidneys for. I find that to be incredibly impressive. I just don't believe that that makes the music more interesting to me. Like, I can respect the machine without like wanting to live inside it. Taylor Swift is a great pop star. She is the greatest pop star of this generation. She gets how to speak to her fans better than almost any other artist. She has built loyalty so strong that the Swifties will defend her like she is their best friend and, the person in charge of their wallets. But as a music artist, she often feels really thin to me. Not empty, just thin. Her songs, they still work. The lyrics work for the people they work for. The hooks are often very, very effective. It's just like certain things like the production and her voice don't really pull me in like I wish they did at times. Her music often just feels like one piece of a larger brand experience instead of being the center of the experience. And that is why I don't really connect with Taylor Swift as an artist. Not because she's bad, not because she doesn't deserve success, but just because the parts of music that matter the most to me are not the parts where Taylor is the most compelling. But as always, I am just a gay with opinion. So I want to know where you land. Let me know. Do you think that Taylor Swift is the greatest artist or the greatest pop star of our generation? Let me know how you feel because I'm sure there are Swifties and non-Swifties watching this and I want to know how you feel. I love you guys so much. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I appreciate it and I will see you all in the next one.